The 28th Ibero-American Summit of Heads of State and Government opened on Friday in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, with the presence of leaders from Latin America, the Caribbean, Spain, Portugal, and Andorra. In France, this Friday, the strikes Normandy referee resumes protests against police. More than 1,500 people were evacuated in Spain as a major forest fire raged the eastern Castilian province. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The 28th Ibero-American Summit of Head of State and Government opened on Friday in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, with the presence of leaders from Latin America, the Caribbean, Spain, Portugal, and Andorra. The leaders of the countries gathered at the summit will seek agreements to address the difficult economic situation left by the COVID-19 pandemic and the conflict in Ukraine. The prime ministers of the countries represented held a preliminary meeting early on Friday to finalize the document to be signed by the head of state and government. Spanish King Philip VI and Premier Pedro Sánchez are among the participants, together with Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. The Ibero-American Summit coincides with the July meeting between the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, and the European Union, to be held on July the 17th and 18th in Belgium. Abroad on the ground marked the MF 011-5 in reminder the Leocadio Guzman that the place where his house stood before it was thrown down to make a way for the wall to the Dominican Republic government is setting up on the border with Haiti. Leocadio Guzman is one among thousands of La Mara's residents whose homes were thrown down for the construction of the border wall.
The construction of the border wall separating the Dominican Republic and Haiti has displaced the residents of the community of La Mara. First, the military arrived and spray-marked several houses with the letters MF, which stands for border wall in Spanish, followed by a numeric code. About 3 months later, bulldozers swept the houses away.
When I got to the house, I saw it was marked with the initial MF. I was working in the fields, and when I came, I found the house marked, and people told me that the military entered and marked the house.
Some 30 families were evicted from the poor sectors of La Mara and La Bomba in Dajabon. Another 48 seem to have suffered the same fate in the neighboring province of Montecristi. Their houses are already marked. The Dominican government declared these properties of public utility in order to build a barrier on the border with Haiti, and demolitions began last November. According to the Ministry of Defense, $1.4 million at current exchange rates were paid as compensation for the expropriations, which include lands belonging to cattle ranchers. However, many of those displaced complained that the compensation is not enough.
I was not very happy, but I had to accept it, because you can't go against the law.
However, before being evicted, Guzman took precautions.
I made that little makeshift house there quickly, with God's grace. Then when they came to say that it was time to demolish, I had at least a place to lay my head on, as we say here.
The border wall is a flagship project of President Luis Abinader, who has toughened the policy on Haiti. The president increased deportations of Haitians and began building the wall last year. The wall is expected to cover a total of 160 kilometers of the 380 kilometers border between the two countries, which share the island of Hispaniola.
Nearly half of Haiti's population are struggling to feed themselves, while 1.8 million people are facing famine-like conditions and in need of urgent assistance, the UN World Food Programme warned on Friday. Certain inflation and lawless armed groups are the main causes for the country's leading into a hunger emergency, the agency explained. Due to the high cost of seeds and fertilizers, farmers have been forced to reduce areas at a time when the spread of armed groups has plunged rural areas with violence. In past years, criminal activity, political deadlock, and deepening economic crisis have contributed to many silent crises in Haiti. WFP's operation in Haiti are underfunded and require $125 million over the coming 6 months.
We're now facing some of the worst food security conditions on record in Haiti, with 5 million people being acutely food insecure. This is significant because it's a number that's tripled in the past few years. The situation is getting worse, and Haiti is slowly sliding into a hunger emergency. This is because of violence in the country. Armed groups are now affecting daily life for millions of people.
On Friday, Brazil's former president, Dilma Rousseff, was unanimously elected as new president of the Development Bank of the BRICS group. Through an official communique, the entity formed by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa informed that the inauguration of Rousseff, age 75, is scheduled for next week, which will coincide with a visit of President Lula da Silva to China. According to the blog, the former president will have to live in Shanghai to carry out her functions. This financial institution was created in 2015 with the objective of financing important infrastructure projects in developing economies. Brazil's President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva visited on Thursday the National Museum in Rio de Janeiro, which was partially destroyed by fire in 2018. President Lula came to and oversee the work that intends to restore the famed institution to its former glory. Accompanied by the Education Minister Camilo Santana, Lula was given a tour by Museum Director Alexander Kellner. Among other valuable items, the museum houses portraits and art belonging to the royal family, along with a recording of indigenous language, some of which are no longer spoken. However, much of the priceless 20 million artifacts collection was destroyed in the devastating fire. So authorities have ruled out as arson as the cause of the blaze, as they said it likely started with an air conditioning unit inside of an auditorium near the front entrance. On Thursday, at least 13 people were killed in a police operation in a favela near the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, where agents confronted armed criminals. The operation in the Salgueiro housing complex located in São Gonçalo, a poor suburb of Rio, was aimed at capturing members of the Red Command who had taken refuge, police said in a statement. During the confrontation, 2 women were injured but are out of danger, the police spokesman said. The Red Command, which emerged in Rio, currently has an estimate of 130,000 members inside and outside prison. Let's take a very short break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, authorities take the last step to require UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, the Joropo as cultural heritage of humanity. Our correspondent Adriana Sibori expands on the information.
The traditional dance of Venezuela. 90 years ago, it was declared as cultural patrimony of the nation. Now, the joropo will be presented to UNESCO as part of the cultural legacy of humanity.
If we were a country similar to a cultural desert, without identity elements that gave us strength, we would be urgent to see what we present to UNESCO. But no, you put your hands out with your eyes closed and you get something that is specifically Venezuelan.
Tradition is not only dance, it is also music that arises from a harp, a four, and from maracas. Depending on the region, there could be more instruments, but where does it come from?
According to studies of history, the Yoruba within all its variants started in the east of the country. But there is a study, musical study, that tells us that the Yoruba originally began with harp in the valleys of Tui Mirandino. There it is also started the Yoruba Llanero, the variant Llanera.
All the cultural representations celebrated in honor of the dance are looking for worldwide recognition.
The joropo is the most deeply rooted expression of the Venezuelan soul because it has spread throughout all regions of the country.
The joropo is the life and expression that represents the spirit of Venezuela to a great extent, because our diversity allows us to recognize ourselves as people that has a diverse culture, people that speak through the songs.
It originated in the mid-1700s. 4 centuries later, they expect to turn it into a World Heritage. In order to achieve this, they must demonstrate that this dance meets several requirements, and one of them is identity.
teleSUR, Caracas. The U.S. and Canada have reached a deal that will give both countries the authority to turn away asylum seekers at their borders. The new agreement will also allow the U.S. to send asylum seekers across the northern border at the unofficial crossing points back to Canada. These two countries have long had what's known as a safe third country agreement, a place that allows them to turn back migrants if they cross through official ports of entry. Trudeau expressed that they cannot shut down Route 1 road because people would look for other places to cross. Therefore, they chose to modernize the Safe Third Country Agreement. As part of the deal, Canada has also agreed to provide access to legal pathway for an additional 15,000 migrants per year from Latin America and the Caribbean. Trudeau also stated that it will increase the number of asylum seekers accepted from the Western Hemisphere to compensate for closing the irregular crossing. President Joe Biden and Canada's Premier Justin Trudeau met at a joint press conference in Ottawa. During this conference, Biden stated that he does not take China and Russia lightly.
I don't take China lightly. I don't take Russia lightly. But I think we vastly exaggerate. I've been hearing now for the past 3 months about China is going to provide significant weapons to Russia, and they're going to. We've all been talking about that. They haven't yet. Doesn't mean they won't, but they haven't yet. And if anything's happened, the West has coalesced significantly more.
In France this Friday, the strikers at Normandy referee resumes protests against police. A new rally of support was called for this Friday in front of France's largest refinery. Hundreds of workers and students respond. Workers from the CM oil depot, from the Palau nuclear power plant, energy companies, working from CET's Heidel and CGT Chevron. They were joined by 150 students and workers who arrived with 2 buses sent from Paris by the network for the general strike. Among them, students, railway workers, workers of the RATP, the actress Adele Helens, and the philosopher Frederick Lerner. The action is part of a nationwide movement against pension system changes championed by the President Emmanuel Macron that includes increasing the retirement age by 2 years by 62 to 64. On Friday, France joined a stride of Western governments and institutions to have banned the social network TikTok in recent weeks, including the United Kingdom, New Zealand parliaments, as well as the Dutch and Belgian government. French Civil Service Minister Stanislas Guéry tweeted that TikTok will be banned from the professional funds of civil servants. The NRE said that recreational applications like TikTok lack adequate levels of data protection and cybersecurity to be used on officials' device, adding that the ban will be effective immediately with some exceptions for professional reasons. Along with several other European countries, the European Union's Commission and Council, two of the bloc's biggest policy-making bodies, announced last month that they will forbid the download and use of TikTok on a staff device. In Israel, mobilizations continue against the judicial reform promoted by the government. The last day of protest was marked by clashes between demonstrators and police. Hundreds of citizens gathering in Jerusalem and other regions to protest against the decision of the Israeli parliament, which adopted on Thursday a law limiting the possibility of declining a premier unified to take office. Security forces used water cannons to disperse the protests, while noting that some 10 demonstrators were arrested for allegedly disturbing public order. The reform seeks to increase the power of parliamentarians over magistrates and, according to experts, endanger the democratic charter of the state. Faced with this situation, the Premier of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, received this Friday his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu, at his office in the Downing Street in the framework of an important meeting to align the policies of both countries regarding Iran. This content, it was enlarged that Sunak emphasized the importance of defending democracy, the democratic values, when he received Netanyahu, referring to Bibi's intention to radically reform Israel's judiciary that has provoked massive protests. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and join our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. On Friday, more than 1,500 people were evacuated as a major forest fire raged in Spain's eastern Castilian province, marking an early start to the nation's fire season in bone-dry conditions. Local officials said the fire had engulfed around 3,000 hectares of land since it broke out on Thursday, forcing residents into shelters operated by the Red Cross and other charities. Its cause was not immediately clear. Emergency service in the region said 8 villages had been evacuated, as well as a home for the older people in Montana. During the day, 18 water-dropping planes and helicopters and more than 500 firefighters and soldiers were there tackling the fire. Cyclone Freddy left 511 people dead in Malawi and worsened the health crisis the country is facing due to the worst cholera outbreak in its history. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said more than 500,000 people are victims of internal displacements in the country and are currently living in 576 refugee camps. The international agency reported that 533 people are still missing and warned that the emergency situation continues in several localities despite the fact that the rains have stopped. On Thursday, Tanzania's authorities said that a pilot of a precision airplane that crashed into Lake Victoria in November, killing 19 people, had ignored automated alerts about the plane's dangerous position. 19 people were killed on November the 6th when the plane, with 43 people on board, plunged into the water of Africa's largest lake, triggering rescue operations to try to recover survivors. Police blamed bad weather for the accident, which was considered the worst in decades. President Saimas Ulu Hassan promised an investigation and ordered the strengthening of the country's emergency response. On Friday, the government of Iran called on the authorities of France to abandon its interference policies and meet the requirements of its own people. The position was stated by the spokesman of the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Nasser Kanani. The diplomat indicated that the executive in Paris should stop promoting chaos in other countries and attend to the demands of the French people who are still mobilized against the pension reform imposed by President Macron. Kanani referred to France's role as instigator of protests in Iran over the death of Marsha Amini, allegedly at the hands of the moral police for not properly wearing her hijab. Back in November, Macron called the Iranian protests as a rebellion and said the crackdown by the Iranian leaders will make it harder to reach agreement on reviving the 2015 nuclear deal. The Democratic Republic of the Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi appointed former militant leader Jean-Pierre Bemba as a Minister of Defense in a cabinet reshuffle on Friday as the country grappled with armed conflict in the east. Bemba, who serves as Vice President from 2003 to 2006, has been jailed by the International Criminal Court over crimes committed by rebels under his command, but the court overturned his sentence in 2018. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is struggling to quell an armed rebellion by M23 insurgency. The country's former Chief of Staff, Vital Cameron, has appointed as Minister of Economy. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm from the South. I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.